welcome back. This is Drew in 32, and this is the fourth episode of the mini-series in which I'm sharing about some money stuff, which is also pretty timely with what has transpired here in the last 24 hours or so. With the passing of that big old, ugly, awful, terrible piece of legislation. Yeah, just wild, man. It's essentially like $1 trillion taken from the people and then transferred into tax cuts for billionaires. And yeah, so essentially exactly what I was talking about in the last episode literally just happened, right? Our elected officials just put through a piece of legislation to take care of their donors, right? The folks that are pouring money into the campaigns. And and the squeeze is going to be put on the people once again, yet again. And so my hope is, despite having some feelings right now, that I don't come across too sour. But it'll be what it's going to be. Yeah. Because I feel like so far I've done a pretty decent job of being open-hearted about sharing on this stuff. And these are all topics that can close your heart and get ugly real quick, if we let that happen. So yeah, I'm going to try to be mindful, to be present and open-hearted and compassionate, and keep the focus on solutions and alternate paths as opposed to just showing up and being cranky about the friggin' knuckleheads doing what they do. So we'll let that go. But that's definitely how I'm coming in to the episode. And and so we're going to talk monies, how it should be spent according to me. And the mantra that comes to mind is investing in us. So that's also the title of the episode. But before I jump in to that, I want to hit a couple housekeeping points. Because as I was listening and editing the first 3 episodes, there were a couple things that jumped out that I thought it would be cool to hit here in the beginning of this episode before we jam on the monies thing. And so that's what we'll do. So a couple housekeeping points, and then we'll transition to talking money. And so the first thing I wanted to give a little attention to is that, again, I'm proud of how I've approached this so far. And yeah, there's definitely lots of space trying to be compassionate, open-hearted, open-minded, and not just showing up to, trash folks or be angry. And so when it came to talking about Trump, I feel like I did a pretty compassionate job of speaking to him as a knucklehead. But I also want to be very clear that I am in no way giving him a pass. He is not innocent or smart or a genius or great, right? Like, dude is a knucklehead, and I mean, really like a dangerous knucklehead, right? For some parts of the population. And I mean, with the friggin' alligator thing, they're calling it Alcatraz. They should probably just call it alligator Auschwitz if they want to be honest. Yeah, I'm feeling my heart close real quick on this one. There's just some awful shit that is being allowed to happen, and that is being put in motion. And, and there are parts of the population that are being targeted just out of bias and discrimination. And so, by no means at all am I giving Trump a pass or making any excuses or defending his behavior, right? Like, it's vile and it's fucked, and it's, harmful to a lot of folks as far as the administration and the policies and the actions so far. So no pass. And I mean, there's definitely anger, and I think it's like sadness. I don't know. Yeah, there's feelings here that aren't fun. But again, my goal showing up to do the podcast here is not to focus on what's fucked, right? Naming it, speaking to it, pointing at it, but then transitioning into a space that is more open-hearted, more compassionate, more solution-oriented. And so I could do, a whole episode just trashing Trump. But I feel like that doesn't go anywhere good. All right. So that's why pointing at him, naming him as a knucklehead, doing it in a way that's a little open-hearted, allows for me to speak from a place that, just feels better and feels more solution-oriented, as opposed to what's so easy, which is sliding into finger pointing and blame, especially related to some of these policies and how they're targeting folks. It's just fucking awful, right? So definitely not a free pass. Trump and his administration are not fucking cool, and the shit they are doing is absolutely not cool. But I also don't want to give that all the attention either, right? Because part of the playbook here is that you have a clown in the front doing clown show type shit, and then everybody focuses on this knucklehead. And that distracts from seeing the bigger picture, right? Seeing the system, seeing what's going on behind the scenes. So, I don't want to fall into that. And that is super easy. But I also don't want to just move past how awful a lot of this shit is, right? Like, so there's a couple things that are true here at the same time. All right, cool. That feels good. So no pass for Trump. He's a fucking bonehead. He's more than a bonehead. There's some awful, vile shit going on. Yeah, but that's not going to swallow up this experience for me. Right? Like, I'm going to continue to let that go so I can speak from a place that is deeper and sees bigger, so that, attention can be given to alternate approaches and different solutions. Cool. Done. Hopefully that's the last of Trump that we will speak of in this episode. But I can't make any promises because, like I said, I'm coming in a little salty. And so it's so easy to go there then, and I know a lot of folks who don't put as much effort into being open-hearted. And so the saltiness, it takes them to less than fun places quickly. So, So we're not going to do that here. So, all right. Throwing that out, letting that go, moving that energy through, and moving on to the next point of housekeeping. So as I was listening, I realized I made a couple comments about older folks in their 70s and 80s. And I promise I'm not ageist. I think that folks in the last chapter of their life, right, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, are super valuable, super wise, and we should be listening to them more often, right? Like, if you've survived on the planet for almost a century, you have been through some stuff, you know some things, you've seen some stuff, and that perspective is super valuable. And so for me, the ideal is we just don't have 70 and 80-year-olds leading the thing, right? Like carrying the weight of leadership. I think that should be for folks maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Folks a little bit younger who then can carry the weight of leadership and be guided and advised by folks with more wisdom, more experience, who have been there before themselves. All right, so just wanted to be clear about that, because I made a couple comments about, not being able to find your medication or not being able to drive. And I don't know. I mean, it's funny and it's somewhat true, but yeah, definitely not ageist. I just think the weight of leadership should be carried by 40s, 50s, 60s with the support and guidance and advice of the 60s, 70s, 80s. Right? And yeah, I feel like that's a cool way to do the thing. All right, that's done. Third point of 4. That's the 2 more. The other thing that when I was listening, I heard is I was describing how history seems to reveal that if you squeeze the people long enough, then shit gets ugly and stuff happens, and a lot of times blood gets shed and there's violence. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not encouraging that. I'm not supporting that. I'm not saying anybody should burn anything down or blow anything up, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just pointing at what history has shown us, is that if you squeeze the people long enough, they eventually squeeze back or bite back. And I would prefer to avoid that, right? Like, we don't have to wind up in something ugly or bloody or violent if we're able to course correct here sooner than later, right? So just because I can see the arc and I can see where things are going if they are left unaddressed, it doesn't mean that I'm advocating for violence or encouraging that or think that's cool or part of the solution at all. I don't. I think that there can be a course correction without violence and bloodshed. And yeah, because I mean, like, hate and anger and fear and violence, like, that's never the answer. It's never the solution, right? Like, that's not going to take us anywhere better or cooler. So that's definitely not what I would like to see happen, and definitely not what I'm encouraging or advocating here. All right, cool, done. Not ageist, not advocating for violence, not giving Trump a pass. And oh yeah, and then this was a little nugget that I wanted to include in the intro episode, but I just forgot about. So I figured that I would share it here. And so, yeah, as I was doing a little prep work and a little research before I started the mini-series, I discovered, to my surprise, that the non-voting population, right, the percentage of the population that doesn't participate in the democratic process, that doesn't vote, that's not actually a minority, right? And since 1900, so over 100 years, over 20-something, almost 30 elections, the number of folks who don't vote, if you took all of those votes together, right, and put it towards some third candidate, that candidate would win every election, right? And so here, I'll break it down in numbers for you. So I think in the last couple of elections, it's been like 60 or 70 mil for each of the Democratic and Republican candidates, right? So in the last election, you got Kamala and Trump won. I think he was in the 60s or the 70s, and then Kamala was 60s or 70s, right, but less. So those are the numbers for the candidates, but there was actually over 80 million Americans that didn't vote. And this has been the case, like I said, every election for over 20 elections, right, for over 100 years. And so, yeah, it's just something to chew on, or something that I found really insightful, because a lot of times when I would tell folks that I didn't vote or I didn't participate in the process because I saw through it and, kind of a charade, yeah, I'd get some crap and some gruff about, oh, every vote matters and, you got to do your civic duty and, all that stuff. And I get it. I understand it. But also, like, I'm not in the minority as far as not wanting to participate in the shit show. You know what I mean? And so for other folks that don't participate, yeah, there's a whole bunch of us. You're not alone. And then also I know a lot of people who vote for one person just to not get the other one, right? So like people are voting for Kamala or for Trump just to not have the other candidate, right? So you're not voting for someone, you're voting against someone. And so, if you factor in all of those votes, I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot of people, and that's enough to win the next election if there's a candidate that's actually for the people. And so, yeah, cool. And that's it. Yeah. So those are the 4 housekeeping points, the 3 initial ones. And then, yeah, just that little non-voter nugget. So if you are like myself and don't participate in the charade, you're not alone. Yeah, and there's a lot of us. And if we all get together, potentially we can set the course. All right. So again, a lot in the current news cycle, a lot in recent history to be discouraged about, but also lots of opportunities for hope and moving differently. If we rally and if people show up for it. So, all right, that's the housekeeping. Now let's talk about the monies. Yes. So investing in us. That's the mantra that has come through for me around this. And essentially it's just investing in us, investing in the people, not investing in the billionaires who can then reinvest that money in the politicians who then invest in the billionaires, right? Because currently that's the way it's working. The government is essentially an agent for the super wealthy. And then the people are, like I said in the past, livestock just getting moved around and profited off of. Yeah, and that's fucked. So according to me, we should be spending money differently. Right? We shouldn't be passing an awful bill like what just went through where we're giving $1 trillion to the wealthy, right? And taking $1 trillion worth of support and services from the people, right? That's not how it should be working. And so the 2 things that come to mind that I think can have the most immediate impact on the quality of life of everybody is universal health care, right? Like everybody's got to have access to health care. And whether you give people money for that or we just allocate funds to make it available. And be very clear about this. There is always enough money to do whatever we want, right? Like the idea that there's not enough money for stuff is total bullshit because America can just make up money. It's been doing it over and over again to bail out billionaires and banks and, yeah. And also the government just goes over budget whenever it wants and sends billions, if not trillions, to the military as well. All right. So if and when the government wants to, it can just make up money and then go way over budget. All right. So the idea that there isn't enough money to provide every person in the United States with health care is horseshit. Like it's a lie. And so, yeah, just being super clear about that. There's enough money to do fucking anything that we want. It's just, the wants of the people aren't actually being factored in. So the first thing is healthcare for everybody. No questions asked. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets access. And sure, there's some reworks to the system that will have to happen. I think there's the opportunity to have both public and private so that if folks want to pay a premium to go see somebody fancier, they can. But everybody should have access to healthcare. We are literally the only country in the first world that doesn't have it. And I think, some countries you might classify as second world have it, and we don't. Right? And so it's pretty fucking criminal that folks don't have access to health care and that people go into debt from medical bills. That's fucking terrible. And I remember seeing a video where they interviewed folks from the UK and asked them how much they thought a birth cost in the United States. And and the wild part is that a bunch of the folks, that were responding, it's like, what do you mean cost? What do you mean you got to pay for it? Right? Like the idea was foreign. But then when they told folks how much it costs, right, to give birth in a hospital, people were floored because it's fucking nuts. It's criminal. It's wild that, this is allowed to happen. And so, healthcare has to be a thing immediately for everybody. And then the other thing that I would do, that different folks have different feelings about this, but for me, it's an obvious, easy solution, is everybody over the age of 18 also immediately gets a basic income, right? And so this is a term or a concept you can look up and Google if you want. Sometimes it's basic income. Sometimes it's referred to as universal basic income. But essentially, just everybody gets a certain amount of monies. And then that will immediately change the entire landscape of society, right? Because currently in the American society, it's capitalist, greed-driven. And, I mean, competition's cool, but not at the cost of people's quality of life. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that folks should be living below the poverty line, or, like, folks are unhoused all over the country. Like, it's awful. And then at the same time, you have folks with billions in the bank doing nothing, or folks spending ridiculous amount of money on fucking going to the moon and shit. Like, it's so fucked. It's so out of whack that there's billions in the pockets of a few while so many people struggle just to fucking eat or to have a roof over their head. Or, yeah, man, it's just so fucking out of whack. I mean, really, there shouldn't even be a fucking billionaire. Like, that itself is almost like criminal. All right, because if one person has $1 billion, then that means there's a whole bunch of people who don't have anything. And I don't know. Like, I'm not saying we go, full communist socialist, right? Like, that's not my jam here, but like, holy shit, we could do something that's a little bit closer to the middle that gives a lot more people a better quality of life, right? And we can do it very quickly. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process where, this thing has to get passed and, we got to scratch backs and talk. Nah, bullshit. We don't have to do any of that stuff. They built that fucking alligator place in a weekend or some shit, right? So, like, shit can just happen. And I think two things that should just happen almost immediately is healthcare and basic income. And if you're looking for an example of how basic income could work, just think about how everybody was getting $600 a week during COVID. Because that's actually like $30K on a year. Right? So if everybody can just get $600 a week, or $30K a year, or what is that? It's like $2,400 a month. My math isn't working right now. I'll do math specific stuff later during the plan, but it's actually super affordable and within reach. And really, if the government is already willing to go trillions of dollars in debt for bombs and billionaires, it can go $1 trillion or two in debt to give everybody an immediate quality of life. And so, yeah, I mean, imagine how your life might be different if you had a $30K salary. It's not a salary, though. It's just a basic income, right? So like $30K for existing as an adult to do whatever the fuck you want with, right? Like, how many people would quit a job that's killing them? How many people would take time to spend with their kids when they're young? How many people would travel? How many people would go on cool adventures? How many people, right, would change the entire way they participate in life if they just had some monies to do it? But that's not how society is currently structured, right? And there's an intention there. If you keep folks near or at the poverty line and hustling 5, 6, 7 days a week, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, like you own them. And this is our society. This is how it's structured. Like we have the freedom to choose between Pepsi and Coke and Burger King and McDonald's and have air conditioning and Wi-Fi and social media, right? Like we have certain luxuries and certain freedoms, but it's all within the agreement to essentially like be an indentured servant, right? And healthcare is tied in there too. In the US, you get healthcare with a 40-hour plus job, right? So essentially, if you want healthcare, you have to work 40, 50 hours, and then you're in the system. You're in the grind. You're in the society, living at the speed they want, which is way too fast. And then with limited free time, there's then a desire to like spend more money on convenience and on luxury. And so now folks are spending more money to have cooler shit during their very limited free time before they then go back to work way too hard for way too little money to then spend it all, right? And that's the hamster wheel, man. And I can speak to it pretty clearly because I've been in it and now I'm out of it, right? So I can see the hamster wheel because I'm not spinning in it. And a lot of folks, yeah, I mean, I've heard it for years, like, oh, this is just the way it is. You just got to do it. You just got to grind. And yeah, that's the way it is right now. But that isn't the way it has to be. Right? Like things can be different. We can structure society differently if we have different priorities and different agendas driving the whole experience. If I'm in a society where the billionaires are running things, buying the politicians put laws and rules and legislation in place to then shape the societal experience so that folks work super hard, don't get paid a lot, housing super expensive, eggs are fucking $10, gas is through the roof, right? Now you create this kind of scarcity feel, or at least you're feeding it, where, oh my gosh, everything's so expensive, I'm not going to have enough money, what am I going to do? Oh, I have to work harder for less money because, yeah, I think I said in the last episode, the cost of living continues to go through the roof, but salaries only incrementally increase. So that's a societal experience by design, right? That has no value placed on the experience of each individual member, right? Like of the people. And so that can be different. We can have a society where the primary focus is actually supporting the people of the country, where the politicians and the representatives that we vote for actually give a fuck about us, right? And they invest in us instead of investing in billionaire bullshit. And so, again, real quick, real easy, two things that can be a flip of the investment from the billionaires to the people is to give everybody health care and then give everybody a universal basic income. Because you exist, we are happy you are here. Here's health care to take care of yourself. And also, here's some monies so that you have a roof and you don't have to worry about where your next meal's coming from. And and if you want to work, you can. And in societies where they've already put the universal basic income in place, there's tons of cool research and findings that they're coming to is that folks will work, or some folks will work because they want to, right? But some folks who don't want to do a job that they hate, that sucks their soul, don't have to. Or they can do, like a little side job, but they have their main needs met through the basic income. And also, the basic income, it doesn't like stay in people's bank accounts, right? Like it flows in, it flows out. That's how money works. It's more of a fluid energy, like water, as opposed to like a static thing you should hoard or try to keep. Yeah, so money flows in, money flows out. If I have an extra 30K, I'm going to a lot more massages, a lot more float tanks. I'm going to travel. I'm right, like I'm going to go do shit with the money because I want a quality of life. I want to have some cool experiences. And so then that's money being poured into society through people and then through people into other parts of society. Right? Like this is what they pretended trickle down would do, right? But you got to give the money to the people so we can spend it with each other. You don't give it to the billionaires so they can, just make money off of money while it sits in accounts and then other people starve to death. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we can change the way that we invest the resources that we have as a country. Right? Like we can pour money into the people. And then you won't have poor people. You'll have people who are rich, both like with some monies in the bank account, but also rich with like trust. Right? Because life is different when you got a couple monies versus when you don't. And and I have experienced both ends of the spectrum on multiple occasions. I mean, I've never been like super rich. Who am I kidding? I've never been rich at all. I had one job once for about 6 months where I was making $100K. And and I left to go to India because the place wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do. All right. So like I could have just collected the paycheck and been a stooge, but I actually left the job, even though they were paying me that much money. So like money is not my primary motivator. And I don't think it is for most people, especially if you remove the scarcity piece, right? Like a lot of people make money very important because they're afraid of not having it, because there's also a bunch of people who are hoarding the shit out of it. And so we get this dog eat dog, us versus them mentality. And so then money becomes super important. But if we just gave everybody some, right? We just give everybody enough to live. Well, holy shit. Like how would that change so many parts of society? You know? Oh yeah, I was saying this too. So I've also had no monies on multiple occasions. And yeah, man, that will make you feel some feelings. And during my nomad years, I've had a couple times where I'm internationally traveling with a negative balance in my bank account and like 2 weeks left on my rental. I remember specifically the one time in Mexico, like standing on a street corner talking to my buddy about it. And his face when I told him my situation was classic. He's like, wait, you have no money? What do you do? And, but I am wealthy in trust and faith in the mystery and life. And so, yeah. So more recently I've been able to lean into it, but it's still fucking hard, man. Like not knowing where your next monies are coming from or having to make 3 eggs and a bag of rice last you 3 days is, it's a humbling experience. Yeah. But I'm grateful that I've had the groundedness in recovery and healing to work with that here the past few years. But when I was younger, like a teenager and then active addiction, having no money and not knowing where food was going to come from, and then also having an addiction and not knowing where like the next fix was coming from, fuck, man, shit gets dark. And then lines become very blurry and easy to cross. And yeah. And so why do we put people in these situations? Like, why are we... I mean, like, it's good to be a little poor sometimes to really understand the value of things. But we don't have to have the amount of folks right now that are in poverty or below the poverty line or without housing. Like, this is fucked. This is not people getting the opportunity to learn about stuff. This is people who are in survival mode, And as somebody who lived in survival mode for a while like that, it's an awful fucking existence. It's not fun. And this is the kind of space that like desperate shit and actions and stuff comes out of, And we have the ability pull people out of that. You have the ability to give people a sense of peace, a sense of trust, the ability to take a deep breath. I mean, yeah, if you put yourself in I don't know, in this perspective, like if you have your rent paid guaranteed, food paid guaranteed, and again, like you can't eat fucking caviar and filet mignon every night, but like like you could eat well. You have a nice house. Maybe it's not a villa in on the fucking ocean, but it's a solid house. Everybody's got their own bedroom, we'll say, right? So there's a quality of life there. There's food. A lot of the worries and the fears that people have just disappear almost immediately. Yeah. And then we're talking about a society full of people that now have just been taken from that survival space or that like paycheck or two away from poverty space. And now we've given them the ability to fucking exhale and let their shoulders drop and probably laugh and cry for a little while and then enjoy life. And I want to be part of a country where people are on that wavelength. I'm fucking tired of being part of a country where everybody is fucking scrambling to survive and doing awful shit to each other. And just like people are not as nice as they could be. And it's understandable, but it also sucks. And, I mean, if everybody has their bills paid, there's still going to be some assholes. I get it. I'm not saying it's going to be utopia, peace on earth, but, there's so much stress and fear that could be alleviated so quickly. Boom, boom, just by doing two things. Healthcare, money's done. Housing, food paid for, healthcare paid for. Now what do you want to do? You want to work? Cool, man, go work. Do what you want, right? So now you don't have to make $1 billion doing something you hate. You can do what you want and make a couple monies. Or do some whole other shit, right? Like don't work if you don't want to. There's plenty of creatives and artists and folks who shouldn't be trying to work 40 to 50 hours a week to have a roof over their head. Like in a way we're robbing ourselves from so much beauty and art and creation by subjecting everybody to this horse shit. Like, I probably know a lot of them, but it's like how many people have we lost to either the grind of life, right? And so, folks are just floating through life in a mediocre survival experience, or checked out early, or couldn't fucking deal with the noise and the nonsense. Yeah, man. It's just, it's so fucked, but it's also so avoidable. And it's so addressable so quickly if we want to do it. All right, so hopefully this hasn't been too much of a bummer, But, some of this stuff is heavy and dark, but it doesn't have to continue to be the case, right? Like things can change if we begin to invest in us. If we have elected officials who invest in us, the people, right? And I don't see that happening anytime soon, as evidenced by the bill that just got passed, right? With the current state of affairs. Like our elected officials, they're not all bad guys all the time, right? I'm not saying anybody's a piece of shit or totally unredeemable or irredeemable. Anywho. But as a whole, these folks don't give a fuck about us. They care about themselves and taking care of the wealthy, who then take care of them. And so there's got to be change all the way through, top to bottom, cleaning house, drain the swamp, get some new folks in. And again, I got a plan, so stay tuned. All right, that feels good. Yeah. I just really wanted to kind of hammer home the basic income thing and the healthcare. Because for me, those are the two biggest immediate investments in the people that we could make that would tremendously change the whole landscape of our country and the quality of life for so many folks. And I don't want to hear no shit about there's no money or we can't do it or we need more tanks or we fuck all that noise. For me, the military, I get it. We got to have some guns. We got to have some cool bombs and some high tech. Yes. Right? Like in case shit gets sideways, we got to be able to fuck somebody up. Cool. Let's make sure that's taken care of. But we don't need to be fucking everywhere militarily, right? Like the amount of money that's spent on the military industrial complex is fucking insane. Unnecessary. So you take some money from there. You also don't give billionaires tax cuts. You fucking take the money back from the billionaire, and then there's plenty of money, right? And if we're going to go over budget, okay, whatever, cool. We go over budget fucking all the time anyway. At least we're doing it for a good reason now. Yeah. All right, that's it. And I'm going to talk more about money stuff, specifically related to capitalism as a philosophy and how it's pretty fucking drunk right now. I'll do that a couple episodes from now. So, yeah, the focus for this episode was just, hey, stop investing in the fucking billionaires and the 1% or the, whatever, and start investing in the people, right? Like that's the jam here. But in a few episodes, I'll talk about the whole big capitalism bubble and framework and how that's, yeah. I mean, it's cool sometimes in some ways, but we're also seeing a lot of how it's not cool. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. But the next episode is going to be about the foundation, right, of what is next. And for me, that's education, right? Like we have to revamp the education system. We have to revamp how we teach and guide our young folks. And if we can do that, we're only 20, 40 years from a totally different experience, right? All you need is a couple generations to be on the ball and things are very different. So education is how that happens. And more on that in the next episode. So until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you are able to create some space for yourself and your feelings about the current clusterfuck that is unfolding called the United States government. Yeah, because it's so easy to get salty and angry real quick and, and then be a lesser version of yourself. And then if I'm salty and angry and sideways, then when I go to the corner store or I go get gas, like that energy comes with me. And so then maybe I'm not as nice or compassionate or patient with, the clerk at the store or, the guy pumping gas. Or I'm from Jersey, so I'm used to people pumping gas. Like it ripples out. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be salty. There's plenty of good reasons to why we should be irate and, raging against the machine is an appropriate phrase for, how some of us feel at this moment in the time. So I'm not saying that isn't warranted or appropriate, but if you're raging, right, like that's the energy you're emanating out to the environment. And plus that's just not fun on the inside either. Like when I'm crooked and salty and sideways and hot and angry, it sucks to exist. So if you're feeling like that, it's understandable. So definitely want to validate it. Also want to invite you to try to open up some space, right? And that might mean you need to talk to some people who can hold space for you. Don't talk to your friends that want to argue or that, just throw gasoline on the fire. Right? Maybe talk to somebody who is less political or isn't paying attention for whatever reason, right? Like, having some support that can help you open up some space can then allow us to move a little differently and, retain some sanity in these very insane times. So be gentle with yourself, give yourself some space, give yourself some kindness, and you'll be hearing from me again very soon if you want to tune in for another episode. All right, that's it. I'm done. Love y'all.